You didn't notice these 10 details in Mr. Hopp's Playhouse 3, but I'm here to tell you exactly what they are and where they are. Surprisingly, this is the biggest installment of the franchise, and development has gone on in the past year under the radar. That has resulted in a trailer which has gone pretty unnoticed as well, but within this trailer there's a whole bunch of game-breaking details. Just like the first one in our list, it's the fact that Esther and Ruby are together in this game, but they're exactly the same ages that they were when they first encountered Mr. Hopp. Now, for those of you that don't know, Esther is Ruby's grandmother, and she's the one that hands down the demonic Mr. Hopp to her granddaughter Ruby. We don't know why it skips a generation, but for some reason in this third game, they're both in their child form, and there are two specific scenes where we see them running together. So we definitely know you're gonna play together. It's unclear whether this is some Eren Yeager time-traveling bull or some youth serum used by old lady-ass Esther, but we do get some ambiguous hints as to how this is done. The entity specifically states this line:
"I'll stitch you two back together, so I can rip you apart all over again."
insinuating that this is his doing. The biggest theory I have is that after the first game and the second game, you actually lose. Yes, that's right, you heard me, lose. While playing as Ruby and while playing as Esther, there is a final chase scene with the entity. I'm theorizing that the entity actually does catch you. Maybe not your physical body, but at least a part of your soul. And maybe, just maybe, Mr. Hopp's 3 is the souls of Ruby and Esther trying to escape Mr. Hopp's playhouse. But we'll go into the stitching idea a little bit more with some of the other details. But now on to detail number 2. There's evidence showing the manor and Ruby's house are both in this game, adding to point number 1 that there's something messed up going on with time. We can see it in this short clip that Ruby is in her house, and that is Mr. Hopp right there. And then in many of the other clips, we know that's Blacklands Manor. And then we can see Ruby and Esther running through Blacklands Manor. Now, Blacklands Manor definitely existed a long time before Ruby was even alive. So does this mean that they're in an alternate dimension? Or maybe, just maybe, they're stuck in hell somewhere? And this takes us on to point number 3. The Shadow Realm is more accessible in this game. For those of you that don't know, in Mr. Hopp's Playhouse 2, you can get a special secret ending. To do this, you have to get all of the medallions. Once you get all of the medallions, the floor starts cracking underneath you and you fall into hell, or the Shadow Realm. This is where you get the opportunity to get the good ending by saving all of your fellow orphans. But the location you go to does resemble hell, making us believe that this is where the entity actually lives. And as I just mentioned, it's not very easy to get this ending because you have to get all of the medallions. So not all players of Mr. Hopp's Playhouse 2 even entered this area. But based on what we can see in the trailer, hell is going to be a lot more accessible. It seems to be one of the main maps in this game. And the next point backs this up even more. Point number 4. The shadow villains have escaped and are spilling over into Blacklands Manor. So back to Mr. Hopp's number 2, if you do get that secret ending and enter hell, you encounter some strange villains, including the shadow people, who just seem like a shadow with a pitchfork, and they chase you and try to kill you. But we can specifically see that in this game, they have escaped hell, because they're clearly seen running after you in Blacklands Manor. They're obviously 3D and a whole lot scarier as well, but like my previous point, not many people actually encountered them, because it wasn't that easy to get the secret ending. But it seems like they're more of a normal villain or foe you have to face in this game, and that's a good segue onto point number 5. There's a new shadow villain, the Shadow Ogre. Now, the Shadow Ogre is shown twice in very, very short clips in the trailer, but it seems to be a huge monster, an ugly, terrifying face, wielding a big bat, which it doesn't mind swinging at you even if you're a little girl. Now, the Shadow Ogre seems to be one of the main villains, I think, in this game. It shares a lot of similar features with the entity. It's got that really dark purple skeletal body shape, and it looks very, very hostile. But there's a big detail about the Shadow Ogre that no one has noticed yet, and this takes us on to point number 6. The Shadow Ogre has the original toys stitched to its belt. If you zoom in, you can see Mr. Stripes, Mr. Hopp, and Miss Bow with their decapitated heads wrapped around his belt. What does this mean? Is the Shadow Ogre one of the main villains that helps the entity tear apart and stitch creatures back together? There's a lot more to this villain that we don't know about, but I'm super excited to see what it is. And it's also starting to make me think, are the original toys actually victims in this game? Are we truly gonna find out that they were also victims just like Ruby and Esther? There's only one way to find out. But now on to detail number 7. Dee is back. And no, don't take that in a dirty way. We're talking about the orphan that tricks Esther into doing the ritual that'll bring the entity back into the human world. We see in a very short clip, she's in her shadow form rising out of the ground. And if you zoom in on her face, you can see that half-stitched human face, which we know means the original owner of the dolls and the first to be possessed by the entity is actually taking control of the body, or the vessel. If you get the true ending in Mr. Hopp's Playhouse 2, you kinda think that you've defeated her, but clearly we haven't. I wonder if we have another fight sequence, or maybe she's gonna be able to stitch more orphans to herself. But anyway, we can deal with her later. On to detail number 8. The new game is gonna be a lot like Dark Deception. Something that's been really clear with the teasers and the trailer is that the game is gonna be in 3D, and you're gonna run down a lot of corridors. Now, every time we've seen a clip of these corridors, we can see crystals lined up like they're ready to be collected in a very similar way to Dark Deception. Now, I do wonder whether these are just a currency that we pick up during the game, or whether they're a mini game where we've got to do a bit of a time trial. You know, like being chased by Mr. Hopp, Mr. Stripes, and Miss Bow in the mini games where we had to find the medallions. But this takes me on to scary detail number 9, and this is a subtle one, but you can really see it in the trailer. This game is going to be a lot darker. Literally, it seems as though the field of view is reduced and the brightness is also reduced. Rather than the 2D style where you can see to the left, right, up, and above you, now it seems like you can only see what's lit up around you, which will make for some pretty bad jump scares, especially now that you can't see what's behind corners until you run around them. I feel like it's played into the trailer as well with this little clip of Mr. Hopp hiding behind a corner. And now on to detail number 10, the final one. Mr. Hopp's Playhouse 3 is an amalgamation of all the previous games. There's going to be new mechanics which we can see from Mr. Hopp's Manor Escape and Mr. Hopp's 1 and 2, plus some new ones. You can see this specifically in scenes like this one, where you have to step on a pressure plate so that you can close a door to the impending Mr. Hopp arrival. And new ones like utilizing light from a flash of camera, because like I said before, this game is going to be a whole lot darker, literally. I wonder what other mechanics are going to be introduced in this game as well. It seems in every sequel a new mechanic is introduced. A bit of a theory I have on a new mechanic that can potentially happen is the switch between Ruby and Esther. We might have a tag in, tag out system, or a co-op system, because you can definitely see scenes where you're playing as Ruby and Esther is following, or you're playing as Esther and Ruby is following, and then in some scenes just playing as one or the other. So there might be bits where only Esther can do it or only Ruby can do it. But like I said before, there's only one way to find out, and that's when we play the damn game. I can't wait. Okay, bye.